Hi everyone, it's Donna and I'm back today with some more easy crafting. So a really good way of making crafting quick and easy for yourself if you just want something which requires a little bit less brain power and a little bit less time is to utilise your book pages. So that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to have a look through some different examples and pick out some images to make some journal cards or belly bands and various bits like that. Now in front of me I have some loose pages which I have already pulled from books, and I'm just going to show you quickly what it is I look for if I'm in a thrift shop or a charity shop and I'm looking through a book and seeing how it could be used. So one thing I always look for is images that can be cut down, such as this one. That's going to give me either a pocket or a journaling card or similar, something along those lines. So this, for example, this one here would be able to be cut down in that way, as would this page here. I would get two separate images. That would make a good pocket, although you know you probably would cut someone's head off there, but you could make a pocket hole there. So that would be another page, and this is another good example here. So that's one thing I'm always looking for, is can I look at a page and think how could I utilise it? Have I got really obvious images there or points of separation that I can use to actually make something with the book? The other day we used book pages to make pockets, and that works if you've got a book page. There's nothing particularly on there that you want to use individually. You can fold, you can fold the whole book page. But sometimes I think it's good to actually really utilise what you have in that book, and you've got something pre-made there already. So that's that book there. This book, I think we used one of these the other day, but as soon as I saw this book, I thought belly band or long journal card. It's just screaming out for it, and it's on both sides, so you could even do some form of double-sided belly band, or a belly band that opens or something like that. So you know, that's just calling out for being cut up and used how it is. I mean, put a tab on there, you literally need nothing else. Another thing is kind of children's books or non-information books. I always look for illustrations which are nicely kind of boxed off, which would just be easy to cut around. So we've got an example here, this example here, and it's quite a big book, this one. I'm not sure if I can get it all on. And there's also a similar one here. So again, I mean, I love this page, and I probably would like to have the whole lot in a journal like this, because I just think it's really, I just like it. But you've got obvious cards there. You could cut them longer to make a belly band. You could cut them this way to make a pocket, and very little else is required. So those are some loose pages which I have dug out. So I'm just going to move those out the way. And then I just have a few examples here from books that I haven't pulled from yet. And again, this book just screams out for journaling cards. You can just cut those out and they're ready. And there's a really nice one in here which I love. Where is it? That's a beautiful one. Really like that one. And I don't think I can find it. I have shown it before in a haul. Yeah, no, I don't know where it is, but there's lots of really beautiful images in here. Label, larger label, or a small pocket. This is a new book that I have just found, well, it was free actually, it was just a donation, so I put a couple of pounds into the box. So again, in books like this, I would be looking for something really interesting like that. I would perhaps, you can see here, you've kind of got very obvious cut lines where you can cut those out, and it almost kind of shows you where, kind of shows you what area to use. And if we have a flick through, I think there were some mushrooms in here. I mean, you can see you've got here like these really long images. They make really beautiful long journaling cards or belly bands. You could either again cut along here and have a wider journaling card, or just cut it in the middle and have like a thinner belly band. So again, loads of options in this type of book as well. Some beautiful images in here. Look at these flowers. So that's another example. I also picked up, when I went to Dublin, some National Geographics, and just in a second-hand shop, and I've got to show you, I mean, beautiful black and white images to begin with, but also just got to show you these. I mean, how stunning are these images? Obviously, they're going to be hoarded. I won't be doing much with these. Not at the moment anyway. But I couldn't believe it when I saw this. And I just thought these images are absolutely stunning. And this National Geographic was 50p. So, you know, pence. And I've got all these beautiful pages in here. And then again, flicking through, just lots of other images, maps, and just it's things that I look out for, kind of like these square shapes where I can just cut out and be done. So yeah, that's another example. You can, I mean, I don't know how easy those are to come by. In Dublin there was loads, but I was obviously I was flying on a plane, so I couldn't bring loads home with me. I haven't seen any around my area, but I'm sure there's quite a few out there. Again, I showed this on a book haul, but it's just an old like stamping book, card making book, but I found some images in here. And again, just ready to cut out, and I would leave those probably black and white. They would look nice in kind of like an Art Nouveau style journal. One here, larger one at the top, same again here. So what I thought we would do is utilise these pages and make some really quick, simple, easy and cost-effective ephemera for our journals today. So I've got all the bird images cut out, and what I would next think about is which ones would make good journaling cards and which ones would make good pockets. Now I feel like this one would make a good pocket because it's shorter and there's a nice blank space there where I could put a thumb notch. So I'm just going to pop that to one side, and this one would also make a nice pocket, and I could probably put a very shallow thumb notch there, or not bother with a thumb notch, you know, it wouldn't particularly matter. So I'm going to put those to one side there, and I think these three are ideal for journaling cards. Now, as I was cutting them out, I did have to bear in mind the size of my journal. So, you know, like I suppose a typical size journal, which is an A4 piece of paper folded in half. So I did have to trim down a few of these, just slightly, being careful not to cut off any beaks. It's lost his tail a little bit there, but only the tip, so that's okay. So just bear that in mind if you're cutting your images, just make sure if they're for a particular size journal that they are going to fit onto your page. Now, the reason I have a think as to what I want to be a pocket and as to what I want to be a journaling card is because it will make a difference to what it is I back these images with. So these two, for example, this paper is quite thin, you know, it's just a typical glossy-ish, you know, non-fiction paper. So it's quite thin and it is going to need backing. However, if I'm going to use it as a pocket and it's not going to be seen on the back, I'm not going to use my best paper to do that. I'm going to use some scrap paper and probably I'm likely to use some old glue book pages that I've been gluing on that I can just use to back these. For journaling cards, I'm going to choose something that is stronger. If my book page was thicker, I would probably just use something like this. This is just some coffee dyed paper. However, I think that's quite thin, that's quite thin. On this occasion, it probably wouldn't be enough. So this is a scrapbooking piece of paper. It's the thinner type, so not that really thick stuff like you would expect from, say, a Tim Holtz paper pad, but it's thick enough to give this some strength. And it's just got a nice neutral base, some room for writing, and that's what I would use if I was wanting to back quite a thin image, just to give it strength, to make sure that it's okay to actually be used and that it's going to stand the test of time when it's being used and put in and out of journals. So my next job now is I'm going to go away, I'm going to back these three onto here, and I'm going to back these two onto some old glue book pages so that they are ready to go. And I will likely round the corners on here and possibly just those two top corners here, and I may even make a thumb notch to remind myself that I intended it to be a pocket. So I've backed these three and I have got some lovely journal cards there. One. I've made these two into pockets and I've put the thumb notches in there. And I also went ahead and cut these out and I just backed them onto straw paper, which is nice because it's quite strong, but it isn't overly thick, so it doesn't add too much bulk. And, you know, I'm not sure whether I would use these as a belly band or a long journaling card or a bookmark, but even if I did decide to use it as a belly band, that would be enough, I feel, to give that enough strength. This was my initial attempt at cutting them up, and you can see I unintentionally cut off the black bits on the side, which I didn't really like the look of. To be honest, I've not done a great job on these either. I've had to go around the edges with some black soot. But they're not too bad compared to these. But even if something like that happens, these can still be used. So we've still got a section there that we can cut off, and that would make a nice... I'm going to cut just under the writing. I'm going to come back in with a cutter. But that would make a nice small either journal card or a topper to a journal card, or as something that you could use in a collage. Same with these ones, whichever one you decided to use. So none of these things go to waste. We can just cut them down. And I mean, even that now, that can be used for collage. We can cut them down even if we think they've gone wrong, and use them for something else. And that's quite nice. Like that looks a little bit like a Polaroid with the name of the flower underneath. So yeah, so they will just go in this box here, ready to be used at a later date. And so that brings me to these. Now these are slightly thicker book pages, so for these two I'm quite happy just to back these onto some coffee dyed paper, and I think that they will be strong enough. These are backed, and I think what I will do is just use the smallest corner punch here. I don't want a massive one. I don't want to round them because I don't want to cut too much of the image off. You can do this by hand, just take a snip off your corners. Rachel at Roxy Creations just takes a snip off by hand. I'm just going to... This just protects the image a little bit. It stops it from getting dog-eared, no pun intended. And yeah, just finishes them off a little bit. So that's those. I thought it might be helpful to show you, if you are lucky enough to find a book which has been sewn and not glued, how to go about removing those pages. I really like books where the pages have been sewn in, because once we've dealt with the string, the thread, your pages are kind of basically still intact, unlike a book that's been glued and you're having to pull the pages out, and they can get a little bit damaged. So if you've got a book, the first thing you need to do is just check if it's been sewn or glued, and you can usually tell because you can see the holes there. Then the next thing is to find the middle of a signature. Mine is here, and I know that's the middle of my signature because I can see the thread. Now, I'm no expert on this at all. This is just how I do it. So please don't take this as given, and, you know, please don't take this as me giving some form of expert opinion. As I said, this is just the way I go about it. But I then get a really small pair of scissors, and I use the scissors to get underneath the threads like this. Now, sometimes this is really easy and sometimes it's quite tricky, because it depends on how tightly the book has been bound. Now, I can tell already that this is going to be quite tricky, because that first one has come undone relatively easily, but now I've got this second thread that I have to deal with. So I tend to just do that and then snip it like that. And that's what I will do along all of these threads here. And you'll find that usually the threads, the threads are doubled, so you have to snip two. I managed to get that one both at the same time. Apologies if I am clanging the camera. Okay, so they're all snipped, which means you can then pull carefully from the centre, and your pages are still intact. Now, obviously, if you're going to be cutting out an image, that might not bother you, but if you're wanting to use pages to put into a journal as part of a signature, that's really handy, because you've already got something there that you can use. Your pages aren't ripped and everything's good to go. We've got no damage. So that is how I go about removing pages from a sewn in book. Now, for book pages like this that have been sewn in and where you get quite a lot of images on the pages, I would actually be quite inclined to just keep my pages like that, because there is a lot of decoration already on the page, lots of images to look at already, and I kind of don't really see why they would need cutting up, unless there's something in particular like this, or you're after something in particular, such as something smaller that you want to cut out. But they are, I got loads together on that page, but they are really nice in themselves, just as signatures, I think. But I mean, something like this, if you don't mind cutting out your if you don't mind losing your writing here, you could still cut these images out if you wanted to. But again, it's just a different option to have them as signatures. Now on here, for example, you might want to keep your frame and then just cover up some writing there. So again, we can utilise what the books give us. Again, we can just maybe cover this up, keep that beautiful image there. And same with this one. So yeah, that's another way that we can utilise our book pages without necessarily cutting them or altering them in any way whatsoever. And then finally, let's have a quick look at some black and white images. Again, these can be utilised as well. This is a nice one to cut up. These are all kind of gorgeous letters. They're all railway related. Writing on the back, so I wouldn't bother me cutting these up because it's not like I'm losing any images on the back. And some lovely pictures here. And some here as well. So I will have to decide what I actually want to use for this. It's going to be a bit of a tricky choice. But what I'm going to do now is actually cut out and prepare some of our black and white images. Because again, these can be utilised in all different ways. We can make cards out of them, collaging with them, we can make tags with them. But I've actually got an idea in mind that I would quite like to do with these vintage looking, well, not vintage looking, they are vintage, but these photographs of these vintage like timetables and certificates. So I'm going to cut these out, and hopefully there'll be a video coming up soon where I can utilise some of these images as well. So I've just cut these up roughly because I am actually going to back them, and hopefully the idea that I have will come to fruition at some point soon. So those are those, and then here are our journaling cards and belly bands. Thank you for joining me today on our little exploration through book pages. I hope that's given you a few ideas and a little bit of insight into what I personally look for if I'm hoping to purchase a book to use as part of a craft project. So until next time, take really good care of yourselves, and I'll see you then. Bye bye now.